Hello, I'm going to talk today about my chemistry teaching experiences throughout 2017 during this course, and also about how that has affected my understanding of what it means to teach chemistry and learn chemistry in the school environment. To start off with, I'd like to talk about the development of my philosophy around teaching chemistry. When I started the course, I came in with a personal philosophy around why I felt it was important for students to learn chemistry and what purpose chemistry serves in the day-to-day life. That philosophy I still hold now. It's about, for me, um, a method of viewing the world and a method of understanding which provides people an opportunity to see the inner workings behind things that they interact with every day, whether it be food, whether it be things that they do at work, if they do work in a chemical field, whether it be nature or science or medicine or health or warfare, and an understanding of what those or how rather how those things work in terms of a chemical background. And now, after working on becoming a chemistry teacher over the past year or so and interacting with students and teachers, conversations that I've had with people who have studied chemistry further or have chosen not to study chemistry further, I feel it's more about there is that intrinsic motivator of an understanding of how the world works, and I feel like I have a need to impart that upon students who are interested in that. But I feel like it's also not necessarily the whole picture. People study chemistry for many reasons, and those reasons outside of an academic pursuit are just as valid and just as worthy as the academic side of chemistry. Um, and I feel like serving those needs of those students and providing opportunity for them to engage with chemistry through their framework of interest is absolutely necessary in order to really create meaning for them. It's a necessary thing that people have an understanding of chemistry, in that it does contribute to a wide range of industry, and I think it's important for people who engage with chemistry through various industries, whether it be factory work or construction or medicine, research, or working in schools or working in universities or pharmacy, that they or food even, that they have this understanding because it provides a richer understanding of what and how things occur in situations, and it provides keys for people to seek out their own understanding rather than creating this separatist understanding of what it means to have knowledge of a subject. So throughout the coursework, we have been working on development of practical and philosophical understanding of chemistry teaching, and I'd like to talk about my development of those things through the framework of Schulman's 7 domains of knowledge. So I'd like to start off with pedagogical knowledge. Throughout the semester, especially this semester, my understanding of pedagogical knowledge and my skills in pedagogical knowledge has increased dramatically, especially since I was on placement at a year 11 and 12 school, at teaching 2 chemistry classes, along with 1 biology class and 1 environmental sciences class. And I found that that really provided me with opportunities to consolidate my skills in creating a series of lesson plans to cover a full topic rather than just individual lessons, and working on how to balance your time in terms of continuing with the curriculum, but also to recover things that students might need more work on. I've had opportunities to really learn how to structure different classes for different concepts, such as theory concepts versus exam preparation or skills concepts or lab skills concepts. And then also, I feel like having that time, 3-4 weeks of teaching chemistry, to really explore different methods of representing what chemistry is and how it looks and how it behaves has been really useful. I've had a lot of opportunity to talk about chemistry. Oh, excuse me. I've had a lot of time to talk about chemistry in terms of written and also visual representations, but not very many in terms of connection of chemistry theory to real world applications, and I haven't really been able to work that into my chemistry teaching yet. I've noticed that I've had a lot of increase in practical task writing, which I'd like to talk about in a moment, but also I find that I have a huge disconnect between talking about chemistry and teaching chemistry and connecting it to modern media, connecting it to IT use. There's loads and loads and loads of chemistry resources out there that are university based in terms of IT, but not very many that are suitable for beginning to learn chemistry, that have like multimedia interaction or are games or are programs or research programs and that kind of thing, that don't take up so much time that it's impractical for using them in the classroom. So I'd like to work on that a bit more. In terms of pracs, this is one of the pracs that I wrote. This one was actually for biology. It's just the first part of the page. This is a kind of reminder, and this was the first prac that I've written the entire thing from scratch, just from some information that has been given to me by my teacher. I don't think that I would have been able to get to this point throughout this semester without having had the opportunity to work on understanding what a prac means and what a prac can do for my students through exercises such as the pancake prac, and during first semester of uni, and year 7 to 10 pracs that I've done with my students in my first placement, first semester. In terms of content knowledge, I found that my personal preparations for lessons have become a lot more efficient and more accurate, which has helped me dramatically, giving me an opportunity to really deliver a fluent lesson. I have a page here which is from my notebook, and I found that I am absolutely at a point where I need to write everything that I will be saying and drawing on the board down at this point in time if I'm going to be doing a theory lesson, because I find that it means I cover all bases, but it also gives me that opportunity to self-check and self-monitor for misconceptions in chemistry theory. So that's really been helpful in reducing that gap that I've been worried about. I talked about that concern about how do I check for misconceptions in chemistry my own misconceptions in chemistry, and stop myself from passing them on. And I found that doing this has helped. Working with more senior teachers and checking my plans with them has also helped dramatically, just from a theory point of view. And I feel like I can start to really deliver the content that I'm talking about with confidence now. In terms of educational contexts, I've had an exposure to two different educational systems. One which is the 7 to 10 Victorian system, and one which is Year 11 and 12 ACT system. And that's really provided me with an opportunity to see what differences occur from state to state and what the expectations of the students are from state to state. I found that that's given me a broader understanding of what chemistry means in terms of teaching chemistry in those situations. I feel that my philosophy around teaching chemistry has become a bit more contextual now. That it's not so rigid that I have to try and mold my class or my students to what I believe is the way for teaching chemistry, but I can modify how I teach chemistry and what I believe is important in teaching chemistry to the environment that my students are in now. I have a more thorough understanding of the constraints of Year 7 to 10 chemistry versus Year 11 and 12 chemistry courses. I find that Year 7 to 10 is challenging in that there's a lot of underlying theory that students will ask about that I can't necessarily explain to them in as great a detail or as complete as I'd like to. And then partly for time and partly for just construction of understanding. And then Year 11 and 12, I find that it's time, always time. There's so little time and so much content to try and fit in. And then also, I guess, the constraints of the school system and moderation. I did some work during this semester on assessment and writing and assessing assignments. So this sheet here is a rubric that we've had to work with, and I found that we didn't write this rubric, but I found that I actually would modify this rubric myself for my classes, because even though it's a school rubric that's been created, it doesn't really necessarily match up to this assessment task well enough to give an accurate result. But I've also learnt in terms of assessment that sometimes giving an accurate answer doesn't necessarily serve the student's best interests. Sometimes you can serve the student's interests better by marking harshly and I guess giving them a bit of a kick up the bum, so that they really try and be critical about their work, or I can mark quite fairly or even quite lenient, and that could serve to boost confidence in my students' abilities if I've noticed that they really struggle with that. In terms of learners, I found it's actually interesting. Many people talk about Year 7 to 10 science as something that is compulsory and therefore challenging to teach because there are students that don't want to be there, and that you'll always have issues, they'll always be disruptive and that kind of thing. But I found actually that, I have limited experience, but I have taught now at a 7 to 10 school and a Year 11 and 12 school, and I found that Year 7 to 10 classes, they walk into the class and they don't necessarily come in with such a high expectation of what they want or need from a course, because they don't necessarily have that yet. They are there because they must, so they're students who must, and then that just means that they've accepted as fact that they will be there. Year 11 and 12 learners, they come into the classroom with an opinion of why they need to be studying chemistry, and so they have this framework in their head of, do I need this particular information, yes or no, is it relevant to my future? So if I have one student who is there because they are there to satisfy their parents' desires. And then if I have another student who's there, who is there to study medicine, and they're taking it as a prerequisite, the student who's there that's wanting to take it as a prerequisite might be asking questions like, well, how do I answer this on the exam? How do I answer this for my assessment task? And that's their main focus. And then if I have a student who doesn't want to be there at all, but their parents are there asking them to go to the class, then I might have issues with trying to get them to focus on the task, because they will they will try and get the information out of me in order to do the minimum amount of work in a period of time. And then in addition to that, I'll have students who are there purely for self-interest, and they're the kind of students who will be asking the questions of, but what does this mean? How does it go further? How can this be applied in different situations? What does that mean in terms of chemistry in the future? Bringing up other subjects and bringing up chemistry in the media that they've seen in the news, which I engage really well with naturally as a teacher of chemistry, because I've come from that kind of thinking and background. But my other students, they are there for different reasons, and so they're opinionated about it. My 7 to 10 learners, they're not so opinionated about it, because they're all there and they're all in the same boat. And I found I can really lose students if I don't satisfy their needs as well. In terms of pedagogical content knowledge, I found I had a lot of concerns, especially when I wrote my assignment at the end of last semester about my journey as a chemistry teacher and what it means. My reflective task last semester, I found that I struggled to get feedback, and especially on the spot feedback. I found that really scary. But during this placement, I actually got my students to give me feedback at end of lessons on how I went, but also give me at the end of placement a full feedback form. I got them to fill out a similar feedback form to what my teachers were filling out for my individual lessons, and it gave me a huge spread of information for all of my students in all of my classes about what they found was really helpful for their learning, and what they found was really detrimental, and what they thought was boring or too simplified or took too long or something like that. And so that's really helped me in terms of the practical side of things, on how I write, how I speak, how fast I go through content, and how I deliver content, whether they want me to change the type of media that I use to deliver content, whether they like PowerPoints or don't like PowerPoints, whether change is good for them, or whether they want consistency in terms of the media I use. So that's been really helpful in terms of working out what I can do to help serve my students, and I think it's something I'll do in the future with classes. In terms of educational goals, contexts, and values, I found my interaction with the curriculum in the ACT has contributed to my development of my philosophy, in that there's a really strong focus in the ACT on connection with industry, and I found that has influenced how I feel about what is important, and that's going back to why should we be teaching chemistry? Why do people learn it? Why do people need it and use it in beyond the academic side of things? And I think my contexts, now I have more contexts to work with. Like, I have a better understanding of what the different contexts of school and students and the education needs of the time and the area are, and so I feel like I can respond better to those contexts in order to deliver the curriculum. In terms of the curriculum knowledge, I found that the Year 7 to 10 curriculum is way more receptive to student-driven learning, and this harks back to STEM education, and the Year 11 and 12 curriculum, at least in the ACT system, is much more challenging to create inquiry-based tasks. It's a challenge in that time is a problem, and the complexity of the subject, because you're asking students to meet a certain standard, and that standard is a lot higher than the standard expected in year 10 for science, but also um, I struggle sometimes with this because I need to deliver content that really serves my students in a way that means that they won't be put out in the future when they're going for their final exams, or whether they're going for whether it's an assessment task that is for their final grade. I feel sometimes I have more leniency and opportunity to do inquiry based learning year 7 to 10 because it doesn't affect their future in terms of academia and entry to university and that kind of thing. In summary, I feel like my teaching has improved throughout the year dramatically. My understanding, especially of what it means to teach chemistry, has improved. I feel like a lot of the things that I need to improve on are connecting chemistry to the outside world and also to new media, because a lot of chemistry now is done in new forms of media. There's a lot of work on videos, there's a lot of work that's done with programming and computer skills, and that's not really included in the curriculum, and I haven't been able to include that in my coursework. Assessment and reporting skills, I really haven't had a lot of opportunity to work on my assessing skills, my marking and moderation. I've done a little bit in class, which I mentioned before, but not very much. My reporting skills, I really haven't had the opportunity to explore writing reports yet, especially about chemistry. And then also, I haven't had an opportunity to interact with VCE chemistry, which I would really enjoy. I think next semester, hopefully, if I can get a placement at a school where I can teach VCE chemistry, I really have a chance to explore what that means and compare VCE chemistry contexts to the ACT system, which I've worked in. Alright, so this is my references page, and that's all I have to say for today. Thank you very much.